Hello everyone and welcome to episode 297 of the Mark and Me podcast. As always, I'm your host Mark. Now joining me on today's episode is Jacob Rice from the absolutely awesome band Superlove. This is not the first time that Superlove have appeared on Mark and Me. I was lucky enough to speak to them not this summer but last summer at 2000 Trees, and they were an absolute delight. And since then they've gained another band member and recently recorded and released a brand new album called Follow Noise, which is genuinely absolutely awesome. So I honestly ask you all, as soon as today's episode's over, go and check it out. You will love it. And as always, please let me know on any of my social media channels if you go and love this band and you check them out, because they're just amazing. And go and see them play as well, because they're awesome live. And like I said, a free piece now, so they sound even bigger. What I like to do on all episodes of Mark and Me is just use the intro to touch base and talk about my last episode. A week ago, I released my episode with someone again that came back to Mark and Me, the amazing Hot Milk. I was joined by two members of the band and it was absolutely awesome. Both Hannah and Jim were, as always, on fire. There was electricity in the air and it was just on a great vibe throughout the whole interview. So a massive thanks to those guys. It was a busy week last week as well because we had Holding Absence on, and I can't wait now because we're one step closer to the big 300, which is going to be absolutely massive. But before I give you the interview today with Superlove, let's give a big shout out to the main sponsor of Mark and Me, Richer Sounds. Each and every month those guys sponsor this podcast and it really helps me go that extra mile. So if you're in the market for a brand new TV or home cinema system or a Sonos or headphones, go on richersounds.com. It really is a great company that have supported me for many years. Right, let's get to it now. Here's me and Jacob Rice talking all things Superlove. So Jacob, thank you for joining me today on the Mark and Me podcast.
Thank you very much for having me, Mark. It's nice to see you again.
It is. It's been a while. A lot's happened, but what I like to do, last time we spoke, we were at a festival. It was quite short. We had kind of loads of noise going on in the background. It was all very manic, but now we've actually got some one-on-one time. I kind of want to delve deep into the start of the band. Was there an album that kind of captured your imagination, or as a young age that you bought or listened to that made you basically think, I only want to be in a band for the rest of my life? Is there something that changed your life musically?
To be honest, like, I've been asked this question and it does get you thinking, and it's really interesting seeing like some of the parallels between like myself and John. Like our first album we ever bought when we were young lads was American Idiot by Green Day, and I think that just changed a lot because it's obviously a punk album, but it's got songs on it like Jesus of Suburbia, which is like an 8-9 minute ballad, isn't it? And that sort of just opens up. I don't know, it just awakens something inside of you. You're like, wow, music can be longer than 3 minutes on the radio, or do you know what I mean? So it's just sort of like that for me just changed a lot. And the whole visuals at the time for Green Day I was like obsessed with, and they were like, I wanted to go and like learn all their songs on guitar. So that album for me just like was definitely the turning point in my sort of introduction into like the alternative world. And I could speak as well for John, like being the other songwriter in the band, that for him was one of his first albums he ever bought as well. And so for us to like have those similarities and then just combine it like however many years later down the line it's been really cool. So
it really shows I'm an old man, because one of my first albums I remember buying was Green Day, but it was Dookie when that came out, and I'm like, God. You're like, when you're talking about when you were young and you had that album, I'm like, God, I think I was probably about 20 something.
Right. Yeah, Dookie, like before my time, but like I did get to go and discover it after. But I know it's crazy, isn't it? When you say like, oh, that was in like 2003 or something, I'm like, oh no, I don't know.
Amazing.
Scary.
But the thing is, what I like about that is that even though they're two albums by the same band, you said, there's songs that are 6-7 minutes, which is quite brave, because Green Day were known at that point up until then with Nimrod and Dookie and
Warning, all their albums were really short, sort of 3-minute punky songs. So it was great to see that they evolved as songwriters.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because that once you discover a band like that, it's funny because you're like, I need to find other stuff like this. I need to go and, do you know what I mean? So yeah, like their song, like I think for me as well as like songwriting is like one of the biggest things. I when I'm discovering something new or when I'm listening to something for the first time, I'm always in my own head like studying the songwriting aspect of it. I don't like takes me a couple listens for me to just like have it on in the car or something like that and just like sing along to it or something. But for the first few listens, I'm always there like nerding out about like the songwriting. So I feel like they might have started that for me. But I love that aspect of music, and that's like one of the most important things with our band as well. So yeah.
Amazing. And I say this on a lot of my interviews because I think it's so important, but music changes for me when I was a kid because I was happy buying tapes of Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Green Day, Jeff Buckley, all these bands that kind of made me want to fall in love with music. But it wasn't until I went to a gig that I realized the power of music. Like, oh my God, like I could be driving. Well, I wasn't driving at that age. I'd be going, get my parents to drop me off at an early Green Day gig. And on the way, I'd be listening to Dookie. But then to see the songs live, to hear them being performed, to hear Billy Joe singing those lyrics and playing that guitar that makes your rib cage kind of shake and the drums stay with you and the hairs on your neck stick up. That's the moment I realized, like, I just want to pick up a guitar. I just don't want to do anything. I want to be like that guy on stage. And again, we might be showing our age, but what was those first early gigs that you remember that had that kind of power that kept you so absorbed and in the moment?
I think like I don't know. I didn't really start going to gigs until like quite later on in my life. Like I was probably about 15 or 16 when I went to my first like gig. I didn't go to gigs when I was like still a young lad. I didn't go to gigs. But I remember the first time I did it, and it was seeing a band, and it was crazy. It blew my mind. Like I know what you mean about like when the guitar like hits you, and it's funny as well because you sort of find yourself looking around the room and looking at the audience, and then being like, yeah, these people like get it as well. Like you don't just feel like so funny to go from listening to it on your own in your room or something like that, and then to go to a gig and see all these other people who are like the same as you, like dressed the same as you, and do you know what I mean? And it's really special, and I've definitely not taken it for granted when we like play gigs as well, that perhaps it might be some people's first ever experience of live music, and it has been for us. And I'm thinking, God, it's a bit crazy having us as your first live experience, but no, it is. Yeah, it's just something. There's something about it, especially in the rock world. You just everyone's part of this little group. It seems like, growing up when I was like listening to the radio, there was hardly any rock bands, and there isn't really now. But when you discover these rockier bands and stuff like that, and then you feel like part of this sort of secret thing, and then when you go to this gig and then there's all these other people, you're like, oh my God, this is amazing.
It's amazing. And I suppose with Superlove, starting out and kind of doing those early shows, when you look back, was it always a case of trying to get as many support slots as you could, try and get on any bill you could, and hope that people that might be there for a main band will hopefully, capture you as they're walking in, and as they leave, they might be like, oh, do you know what? I'm going to invest in their album when I get home, or a t-shirt, or hopefully, stream one of their songs. Was it always a case of trying to win people over?
I feel it's funny for us, like when we're on stage, like we're quite self-aware of what we are and what we're doing. We're like, we are the opening act. People, the majority of people are not here to see you. So you've got to sort of like the way you are, like not be too, I don't know, not be too much for them so that they go, oh, they were maybe a bit too much. They maybe thought they were like too cool. So myself and John, like when we're on stage, we just like have a little chat and we try and break it down and make ourselves like, I don't know, a bit more like relatable in that sense. Like and then we always like say, oh, like I know you're not here to see us, and like, we're very self-deprecating in that way. But I think that does work for us because when we're on stage and we're playing these songs, like we're always smiling, we're always having a good time, and we're not like always deadly serious. And I feel like for people seeing a support band, it's sort of a relief for them, and like the pressure is almost off for them to like feel like they're enjoying it. Because like even if they're not enjoying it, they can take it for what it is and be like, well, this music isn't for me, but I could see they're having a great time and they're like nice in between songs and they like a little chat and stuff and sort of make it lighthearted, and then we're on our way. So it's always funny playing those opening slots. They're very like daunting, but like we just try and make it. I don't know. We're very aware of what the audience might be feeling because we've been there ourselves as well. So we don't go on and give it all guns blazing and we're like, yo, everyone, sort of thing. So yeah, I love that about our band though, and that's natural for us. That isn't a thing that we just do for the sake of it and like put it on. That's like the most natural way to be for us, and I think it sometimes works. Like people do just go, actually, yeah, I did enjoy that, and they might go and check us out after. But yeah,
There's nothing worse than seeing a band that think they're the Beatles at a very small support slot. It's nice to be humble and stay grounded because people don't realize, but the crowd, as a band, you're quite transparent, and the crowd can see right through it if you're trying to bullshit everybody with this
100%.
arrogance. So stay grounded, stay as you are. It's working so far. It's people warm to that, so it's good to see. But talking to live music, when you're in the studio, do you keep in mind the fact that when you go and then perform these songs live, you don't want too much of a change? Because some of my favorite bands in the world are, let's say, like Radiohead and Thrice and bands like this, where when you go and see them live, they're still the band that you've listened to in the studio. And the worst thing is when you hear a band that do 26 overtakes of guitar and it sounds so huge, and then when you go and see them live, it's really weak because there's no way in the world you can recreate that with one guitarist or two guitarists. Because of your dynamic as a band and there's so little of you, do you kind of consciously, when recording, make sure that you're not kind of biting off more than you can chew, that when you're then playing it live, it's unachievable?
Yeah, that's a really solid question because for us that resonates a lot because there is just three of us and we do enjoy the production element of our band. Like we do like layers, we do like harmonies, we do like this and that. So it's very interesting because going into this album, we were very aware of us having to play these songs live. Whether it's with when we wrote Colors, a lot of it was written during the pandemic and the end of it. So it was like, well, we want to experiment, and I feel like this is a great opportunity to do it. And then some songs live worked really well, and some songs live we couldn't. Like you said, it wasn't that they sounded awful, but it was like it was hard to replicate them live, and we wanted to do it justice because we didn't want people to come to the show and be like, I love that song, but hearing it live, it just wasn't great. So we just would sometimes put songs on a shelf and just not play them live because of that reason. Like we don't want people to turn up and be disappointed for whatever reason. So yeah, it's tricky because we're a band that has got all this modern technology when we play. We don't just rock up with like guitar amps and I wish that was the way sometimes, like going, I wish we could strip it all back, but we're almost so deep in it now that, like playing to a click track and having like elements in between songs to help make it more of like a entertainment thing, like a proper show. So it was tricky, but going into this album, we were so aware of that, and I feel like we came out with songs that we know would work live. Like a song like "Go," we wrote. That was the first song we wrote for this new album, and live there is like that is how it is. It's just guitar, bass, drums, vocals. So that was easy, and same with like Something Good and Easier and a couple other songs on the album. So yeah, we were so aware of that because like you said, we don't want people to turn up and be like, oh, not sure that works live. So yeah.
I've been listening to the track Easier for the last couple of days, and it's earworm. It gets right in there, and I'm humming it again later on in the day. And genuinely, it's a great tune. And the thing that I struggle with in music lately is the lack of great music videos. So because I grew up watching MTV, I would always be obsessed with stuff like Smashing Pumpkins. They're like, it was like a theater production watching their music videos, and I used to be absorbed and sit there and be blown away. Even bands like Bush and Foo Fighters, so much work and thought went into these videos. And I'm not saying that it's kind of died down, but with music budgets and the music industry now not earning as much money because of streaming, bands aren't able to invest silly amounts of money in these short films as a music video. But the video for Easier looks like one of the most fun, crazy days you probably spent ever with your band, with some great ideas that just works. And it was really refreshing to see a video where you're just having fun.
Oh, Mark, that means so much because, like, I wanted to almost reference that. The main reference for me for that video was Blink-182, because they're one of my like all-time favorite bands. They're up there, and everything that they used to do back in the day, in like the early 2000s, and like you said, MTV, and all the small things. That video, I know that's like obviously their biggest hit, and but that music video, how it was them almost in these different music performance like scenarios, and not taking the mic, but they kind of were. And I was like, oh, I want to reference that because there was a lyric in Easier where it says about being someone else. So I was like, how can we have fun with that? Because we're a band, we don't have an aesthetic, and a lot of bands at the moment, it's like it's based around, like, obviously it's predominantly the great music, but like they always follow up with these great aesthetics, and I can't do that because I respect the people that could do that, but I just find that so I find that so difficult, and almost for me, I find that like more restraining, because when we do our videos, we know we can do absolutely anything. So for Easier, like you're right, it was the most fun day ever because we were just constantly just laughing at how stupid we looked, like looking at each other and just like crying with laughter. But that's one thing for me. I want people to just see our band and see that we're having fun, and like we're all best mates. Like we live down the road from each other, and we're all like always hanging out and stuff. And I want that to resonate with our visuals and our music videos. And I think like it's lost a little bit at the moment in the current scene, like that sort of camaraderie of like bandmates and stuff like that. So I just want to like portray that for us, and Easier was like the perfect song and video to do that with, because it was great big fun song, bouncy song, and accompanying it with these visuals like made just perfect sense. But I'm so happy you pick up on that. That's so cool as
It's
well.
very cool. And with Easier, even though it's so fun and so crazy and the video is so exciting and just colorful and everything, you wrote this a couple of years ago during a time of struggle. So as much as it's all fun and the video is great, you obviously had some personal within moments that maybe you were trying to reflect or find. And if you're happy to discuss them, is it the fact that you had your music that helped you then get out of that mind space and the way you were? Because I suffer from depression. I'm not, some superstar that can walk around with this face and mask every day pretending life's great. And I think it's important. And I've had bands like Bury Tomorrow on recently who spent an hour talking about the fact that they don't want to get out of bed most days, and they think that they look like shit every day on every photo. And it's like, wow, like these bands you look at with the most amazing photographers with these incredible performances at these big festivals are still like me and still have days where they struggle. So was it you and your writing for this album that kind of kept you going?
I'd say so. Yeah, definitely. Like I was saying to somebody yesterday that it really does. Like a lot of people say it sounds like a cliche almost, how many people say my music helps me channel these things, but that it really does. And I was aware of it a bit, but when you are faced with writing an album, you can sort of put all your thoughts of that sort of year, and you can channel it into songs, and you do feel lighter because of it. And a song like Easier, I wrote that probably about 3 or 4 years ago, and you're right, it was a time like where I was not too sure where like life was going and stuff like that. But I felt like I just wrote that song, and I could almost like shelf that thought in that song. And so sitting on the song was very difficult because I was like, I really want to put it out, but it doesn't feel like it's right to put out yet. And I think it needed a bit of tweaking as well. It wasn't how it sounded now, but the moment it was revisited and we spruced it all up, I was so happy. Like that's one of my favorite songs, like lyrically, like I've ever written. and it helps music. You know, I listen to bands and they talk about similar themes, and that helps me. And I'm sure it helped them way more to put it into a song. So for me to do that was yeah, really really cool. And I feel like a lot of people are picking up on these sort of themes now within our band, and I'm so happy about that, because I don't ever want it to be like, oh guys, by the way, like we write songs about this sort of thing. I want people to sort of discover it, and we're always like, we're just chipping away over here in Superlove, and I feel like people are just sort of gradually getting on board and realizing these things as well, which makes me even more happier.
And with the album not quite out as we're speaking here right now, Follow Noise, how does it feel? Because has it been an album that you've sat on for a while? Has it been sort of recorded and done in the last sort of year? How's it been? Because you just said you've written that song 3 years ago, and I'm like, wow, you know, like that's a long time to have a song ready to be to the point where we're now sitting and talking about it. So, at what stage was it that the album was all wrapped and ready to go?
Honestly, it was very, very last minute. Like we only went away and recorded the album in January this year. So we wrote Go and Something Good last summer, and then from there on, then it became very obvious that what we were writing and what we were building towards was an album. I don't think that was always the plan to do one a year after Colors had come out, but I felt it was right because we had Tom step into the band on drums as an official member, and I wanted like to sort of reinvent ourselves, and this almost feels like our debut album, as Colors was written all those years ago with just me, myself and John, and it felt like more of we were a production songwriting duo. So as soon as Tom stepped into the band and these songs like Go, Something Good, Easier started coming out, and we were like, well, this is an album, and this has to be an album. So it was on the back end of last year, and then we went away to record in January with hardly anything done for the album. We thought, because Colors, it was all done. So with Colors, we went to record and we knew exactly what we were doing, because every single melody, every lyric, every part of the songs was written. So it was a case of retracking a lot of stuff, which was it's good fun, but there was something more fun about going into recording not knowing what we were gonna come out with within like 3 weeks. So yeah, a lot of it was written at the start of January this year. We had the singles and a couple other loose ends, but no, we decided let's just go in 3 weeks and see what happens. And I love that about it, because it was I don't know, it was almost like, oh god, it could go terribly wrong or it could go really well. So I'm hoping it goes well and people like these songs, because I think they're our best songs for sure. But because of the fact that we didn't sit on them for that long, it's almost like can get excited about it closer to the time.
And you mentioned then, obviously, Tom becoming an official third member, not just like a session musician that when you go and gig or you do stuff, you have an extra musician. Now, that changes the dynamic massively because you've relied on being a two. I'm sure your ideas bounce off each other. Your best friends, like you said, you only live down the road from each other. Adding that third wheel could go two ways, couldn't it? It could be disastrous at times because it might be amazing musically, but they could be a bit of a dickhead and wind you up, and you could just be like, oh, Christ, like, why have we done this? But it all
Yeah,
seems so positive, and just talking to you today again and seeing you kind of, you're so like lit up talking about it and it's so positive. I think it's a great thing, and it must be amazing now going through the old era of songs with a new perspective and a new mind and a new performance, because it probably made those songs that might have slightly got stale because you've played them for a while now seem fresh again.
100%. You're spot on again, because one thing that Tom brought with him to the band, like he had this access to this private rehearsal room in Bristol, and as soon as he joined the band, we were like, we hopped on board, and now it's a Superlove sort of headquarters. That's where we like film a lot of content and we practice all the time. So he brought that to the band, and that was something that we really needed, I think, to meet up and play live, because we didn't do that so much when it was just myself and John. So he brought that, and he was someone. He wasn't just some stranger as well. It was quite nice because he was friends of a friend, and our old bands have played some shows together, so we like were quite matey with him anyway. So for him to just jump into the band, it was so seamless, and like he's got the same sense of humor as us, which is like one of the biggest things with our band is like it's fun. So we wanted, for him to be on the same wavelength is just insane, really. And he brings such a cool element to the band because he's got such a broad knowledge of music production and recording. So he's not. I don't see him as the drummer. I see him as just like, but almost as cheesy as it sounds, that missing link for me and John. He sort of like ties it all together really well. So yeah, we as soon as we like started working with him, and he covered for a few shows, and I had little chats with John saying we need to ask him to join now, and John was like, no, play it cool. So but yeah, I'm so happy with how it all worked out with Tom. Can't believe it.
It seems a really good time. I've just recently come back from Slam Dunk, and there's a real good vibe about great bands and the music scene. And because we went through that horrible time of the pandemic, which seems quite a long time ago now, there's this new appreciation of just live music. I think people at one point, I remember me in my inbox getting just complete notification hell of just this gig's being cancelled and your tickets for Alice in Chains have been cancelled and Incubus is now cancelled. I did have that one moment when I was thinking to myself, am I actually ever going to go to a gig or a festival again? I think bands suffered the most, and people don't understand that if you work from home, you could have your laptop. If you worked in an office, or most jobs you could carry on, but for you guys it was kind of a pause for 2 years, and you must now be looking forward to playing in the next few days more than ever, because you must have had that kind of prism put around you where it's like you can't do what you're loving, you can't do what you're best at, and now finally someone's hit that play button again.
Yeah, it for us. It was, yeah. I mean, it was awful for everyone, wasn't it? And involved, especially in the music industry. But we were just starting out. Like we just like announced we were being a band in 2019, and for 2019 we were flying. Like we were so happy like with how it was going. We were so lucky. We like got picked up by our manager Chris, and we got a booking agent like almost straight away, and we were doing all these festivals and tours and stuff, and for us it was so new. And then we were on tour with a band called Rome in January 2020, and then that's when we started hearing about everything, and we finished the tour, and then obviously lockdown. So we were, yeah, we it was weird timing for us, because I felt like, oh, this is going like weird, this is going at such a good rate, and I'm so excited, and then nothing. And we did have releases scheduled for 2020, and then we obviously we signed for Rude in summer of 2020, I think it was, and so we had releases scheduled and planned, and then it all just came crashing down, and then we spontaneously released like a second EP just out of nowhere. We just thought, well, we'll just put some music out that we've recorded from home and stuff, and that worked really well for us because we just discovered all these different areas we could tap into of our music. But yeah, it was crazy, and I feel like since then we haven't really been able to recover properly as a band. Unfortunately we were let go by our first booking agent, and we couldn't get gigs for a while, so we were gutted. Like we were honestly gutted. And then it all started looking up, middle of last year when the album came out, and then we went and did a few festivals and shows and got to play these songs off the album, and that was when we were like, cool, we know exactly what we want to do. In the summer of last year, after playing those shows and festivals, we're like, we know what Superlove has to be now. And then that helped us then go into write the rest of the album. But I honestly can't wait to go away now. I just hope I recover in time, like my voice. But we'll see. I've only got one day now, but we'll see.
You got one day, and I'm sitting here making you talk for half an hour.
Oh, it's all good.
The fans will be listening now, be like, you arsehole. Like, he had one day to recover, and you're asking him all these questions. Just ask him when the album's out and do the interview.
Yeah. Oh, dear.
You'll be all good, dude. The adrenaline will overpower everything. And on the same note of, how great music is in the live scene, also British bands right now. To see Enter Shikari only a couple of weeks ago getting the #1, I was talking to Rao at the weekend, and there's a real buzz. Even bands like Sleep Token, who you just wouldn't expect to be doing so well, but they deserve it all. They're unbelievable. But it's so great. I'm seeing so many bands in the top 20 in the UK charts. I'm seeing these shows selling out. I'm seeing anniversary tours. It feels like the best. I sound like a granddad, but I don't remember a time that feels this exciting in the music scene for British music.
I'm so glad that, like, yeah, Shikari, they're like one of our favorite bands. Like myself and John, they inspired our band, like how we started, like going to their show, inspired the creation of Superlove. So now that they're getting #1 albums, and I saw them on Sunday brunch randomly, and I was just like, oh my God, what is going on? This is insane. But it's cool, isn't it? And for us, we're obsessed with like British bands, like, and the Britishness of bands. Like LTA were like one of our other biggest inspirations, and I feel like they just nailed like British rock, and bands like Boston Manor as well, and just everything about the visuals and the attitude and the songs like is like, yeah, it's proudly like British. Like I quite like that. Like I don't know what it is. I feel like we've got something really cool over here. It's like always really like raw, and but it's insane, isn't it? I feel like every band I'm seeing doing these big tours is some British band, and I just can't believe it. So cool.
You don't realize as well, because I was interviewing Under Oath at the weekend, and it was only them because they're American and they've come to this festival in the UK, and I'm thinking, I wonder what their mindset is like. And they are obsessed with British music, and they're like, just to be here in Leeds and London and know that we're close to the home of Oasis, and
Yeah.
and they were literally spent probably 25 minutes of a 30-minute interview talking about how great Radiohead and Oasis and Blur, and it was just amazing that these American guys were so obsessed with the fact that they're in the place of the best music around.
I love that. Like I feel like we do bands really well here.
Yeah,
Like
it's
that's
the one
just
thing
something
we get
do.
right.
Yeah, yeah.
A lot of things
Absolutely.
we fuck up on, but
yeah, true.
bands, we're good. And my final question for you today, dude, is what I do on this podcast is ask the band to choose the final song that's played. So to try and keep the podcast original, I'm nearly at 280 episodes as we're speaking today. Every band, every artist, every actor, every director that's been on this podcast, it doesn't matter if it's been Anthony Hopkins or whoever's been on, they get the same question. Now, is there a song that means a lot to you that you adore? Don't pick your own because that's arrogant and
Can you
that's not
imagine?
cool. One
Can
band
you
did
imagine
that.
that?
One band did that.
Oh, no way.
But I was wondering, is there a song that means a lot to you, or a piece of music that, as this interview's all wrapped up, ready for the world to listen to, you would love to be played out after today's interview?
Oh, I love that. This stuff's always really cool. A lot of pressure, but I feel like there's a band called Decade. They're not a thing anymore. I think they're on like a very much extended hiatus. And they're from this sort of area as well. And they're one of my favorite bands. Like they're quite not a lot of people have heard of them. They were quite a big thing when like UK pop punk was a big thing, but they were signed to Rude as well. Um, but yeah, Decade. There's a song called Sunbeam by them, and it was on their second album. And funny enough, it was released via Rude Records as well. That's not how I found out about them, but when I found out we were going to sign with Rude, I couldn't wait because one of my favorite bands ever was on the roster at the time. But yeah, Decade, Sunbeam. I'd say that song means a lot to me. I love that song.
What's awesome about this is I asked this question. Some people pick the Rolling Stones, and some people pick Nirvana or Tom Petty, which is incredible. But when I hear a band's name that I don't know, I'll now go and edit this into the episode, and I'll sit there and be like, Decade, and I'll go onto Spotify and be like, I'll have listened to their top 5 tracks, and then I'll listen to the album, and then for the next 2 weeks I'll find a new band.
I love that. I hope so.
Thing,
I hope they do it for you, because yeah, they've been like one of my favorite bands since 2012 or 2013. So I just love them so much.
Amazing. I'm going to let you now have a breather, go and get some Strepsils, go and get some honey and lemon. And I do not want to be the reason that your fans get pissed off. You're really croaky in the next few days. But Thank you so much for coming back on. It's been a pleasure to have you on. I can't wait for people to hear the album. And good luck with everything, because I can't believe it's been a year since we last spoke, but I'm sure this time, hopefully in a year's time, we'll talk again and talk about even more exciting stuff.
Yeah, Mark, let's make it a yearly thing, Mark.
Yeah,
Let's do it.
Superlove annual podcast.
Yeah. Well, but thank you so much for having us, and yeah, really appreciate the support as well.
I never feel enough, and life is kinda rough. Does it ever get easier? Bury my head down in the sand. It's all part of my plan, 'cause it's never getting easier.
So there it is. There's my interview with me and Jacob. What a lovely guy. Welcomed him back on Mark and Me with open arms. And as I said at the start of today's interview, I urge you all now to go and check this band out. Their brand new album, Follow Noise, is out now, and I love it. I think you'll absolutely be blown away. And if you're really, really impressed with them, please let me know. Jump on markandme.com and let me know on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, because that's the best compliment Mark and Me can get. Also, if you've enjoyed today's episode, in return for listening to these free episodes, all I ask is you to share them. It costs you guys absolutely nothing to do, and I say it each and every time, Mark and Me is a one-man team. People don't always believe that. There's no editor behind the scenes, or a marketing manager, or a social media team. It's just me. So if you've enjoyed today's episode, please retweet it, or share it on Facebook, or put it as your Instagram story. Or if you don't want to share it, just hit the like button so it helps that algorithm that no one can work out, but might get seen by a few more people. Also, I have a Patreon account. This means the world to me if you can sign up on there and support Mark and Me. It means I can go out there basically and do more episodes for you guys at home. I don't make a living off this podcast. It's a hobby that I really love. I give everything to it, but that little bit that you give back goes right back in and continues to allow me to basically record more episodes for you guys at home. And that's the dream for me. I'll be back in only a few days' time with another brand new episode, 298. My God, 300 is so close and I can't wait. But before we get there, we've got 2 cracking episodes coming up in literally the next week. So it's going to be a busy time. So until then, take care of yourselves, look after each other, listen to Superlove, and I'll speak to you all very soon.
I take it everywhere, can't seem to let it go, and it won't let me forget.